Hello, and welcome to session number 7. And I hope the spiritual disciplines just impacted you in a way that is beyond understanding. And, I know God, when we reach out to Him, blesses us and speaks to us over and over again. And so I would love to hear your story of how that impacted you or a difference that it made. So feel free, email me at the bottom of the screen, anxietycoachmike@gmail.com, or again, join the Facebook group page and post things there so everybody can just hear how this program started to impact you. And I wanted to mention way back at the very beginning in session 1, I talked about a lot of times there's a wall that we hit, and it's right around these sessions. And so you're doing new things, you're spending some quiet time with God, you're exercising, you're dieting a little better, you're changing your thoughts. And it's a lot of bad habits that you're starting to break, and sometimes your body starts to fight back against it. And so I'm saying, like, don't give up. Like, this is the time to stick with it, keep doing it, keep following all the homework and doing all the skills, and you'll get over that wall. And by the end of this, you're going to see some amazing results. So with that, today we're talking about anger, and we'll just start out with the skill. It's called EMDR, so it's eye movement desensitization rationalization. I think I said that right. But it's a technique that's great for trauma. It's great for PTSD, those sort of things. And we'll just jump right into the video, and I'll catch up with you here in a minute.
Hi again. Hope the spirituality stuff was helpful and that you met God in a powerful way. So the skill for this week is what's called EMDR. It stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So kind of a long phrase. So I always just say EMDR. But if I remember the story correctly, it was a psychotherapist walking through the woods and thinking about her own trauma. And she noticed as she would think about the trauma, if she would move her eyes back and forth quickly as she thought about it, it reprogrammed the way that she felt about it, the way that she thought about it. And so it started out as like just a little blip in a psychological magazine that, hey, here's a great technique. If you're having trouble, anxious, to move your eyes back and forth while you're processing something, and it'll make it healthy. And that has expanded. Now there's certain therapists that are just specialize in EMDR, and it's a huge technique used for PTSD, so post-traumatic stress disorder, and people that huge trauma has happened to them and they need to reprocess that. So how it falls in and what I've used for anxiety and depression, this is another one, just like the emotional freedom technique that you can use when anxiety is high. So if that wasn't as helpful as you would hope for you, that this may be something different. It used to be just the eyes, but now can even be like a rhythmic tapping. So I'll just have people tap on their thighs. I have a little machine, it's called a TheraTapper. It's almost like a cell phone vibrating, and there's 2 handles, and you hold it. So it will just kind of go back and forth. And what it's trying to do is connect the circuits in your right brain with your left brain and help you just reprocess information in a different way. Now, my main suggestion, go to YouTube, just look up, how to do self EMDR. That there are specialists way better at this than me. But what I do is, with clients that I work directly with, is give them kind of like safe spaces in their mind. So we do a safe place, we do a safe person, and a protective person. And so there's a list of questions that I'll have them imagine as they're doing the tapping, or with me, they hold on to the little buzzers. But for you, you can do the tapping, close your eyes, and you want to imagine a safe person, a protective person, and a safe place. And as much as you can, engage all of your senses. So with a safe place, I ask questions. They close their eyes. Picture a place that's peaceful and calm as they're doing this or holding onto the buzzers. And I'll ask them questions that engages their senses. So a lot of times they're at the beach. Who do you see? What are people around you doing? Maybe somebody's flying a kite. Maybe people are in the water swimming. What colors do you see? I see a red umbrella. I see a blue beach towel. What smells do you smell? I smell the salt from the salt water. What sounds do you hear? I can hear birds, seagulls in the background. I can hear kids playing. So what you can do with this is just, go to a quiet place, close your eyes, start to imagine your perfect place, do your tapping, and describe it as best you can with every sense. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What could you touch? All those sort of things. And do the same thing with a safe person. If you don't have a safe person in your life, make one up. It might be Superman. It might be somebody you saw from a movie. And also a protective person, somebody who's willing to go to battle for you and would fight for you to be successful. And just describe those people. What do they smell like? What do they look like? What makes them so special? All the while you're doing this rhythmic tapping. And then I always give them like one final word. So at the end, like let's say it's your safe place. Let's label that with one word. So it might be beach, might be water, might be peace, might be calm, might be serenity. So one word that represents how they're feeling in that moment. And if you're really in that moment and you imagine that place and you're at a place of peace, you're connecting your right brain and your right brain, you're going to have a great feeling. And so you're labeling that with one word. And as you do that again and again, in a moment when you start to feel stressed, you can go back to your word, serenity, beach, and the feeling that you have from the EMDR, you can bring into that moment. So play with this, give it a try. Again, I would look around YouTube for people who are certified in this and more experts that may be able to give you great advice, but definitely do the safe place, do the safe person and the protective person, and carry around that with you all the time. Okay, see you next week.
So hopefully you can find that a little bit helpful. So, if trauma is a big issue in your past, finding somebody who can do EMDR would be a great thing. I did come across, as I was researching some of this for this program and the videos, now all the time in my ads pops up a site called virtualemdr.com. And it advertises being able to do the EMDR therapy from home. And the reviews on the site are, off the charts good. And it also mentions about being able to have a free session just to try it out. So if that's something you want to look into, try out. Like I said, people have had amazing results with the EMDR, especially as it results to trauma and PTSD, and you may find it helpful as well. All right, so now we're going to go to pages 25 and 26. So we're talking about anger, and so there's an anger assessment just to kind of see where you stand and whether or not anger. That this was never a big issue for me. I've never been an angry person, but a lot of people I've worked with, like this was a huge part in why they were anxious, why they were depressed. So here's an assessment to kind of get a baseline for you. So I suggest just pause the video, fill out pages 25 and 26, and then unpause it and we'll pick up. So go ahead and pause. So with your anger assessment, as you completed it, hopefully you totaled up your score and you got a final score. So the way I totaled this up and ranked this assessment, so if your score was 0 to 26, that would indicate you're too low. You need to go out and get mad about something, but I've come across people who have like major depression and in the middle of a major depressive episode, and they just don't have the emotion. They just don't care. And we go down here and just put a 1 on everything. And that's not necessarily healthy. So the 27 to 40, that would be the good range. That would kind of be something to like shoot towards, that you are, you're putting a lot of 1s and 2s, and things are making you a little irritated, a little angry, but not off the charts. So 41 to 60 would be the mild to moderate range. So that there's definitely some skills you can pick up here and learn and may be able to help you. And then 61 plus, this is definitely an area that needs some attention, and, most likely playing a pretty big role in your anxiety or depression. Again, a better but believable thought is you just identified an area, and this is something you can focus on, get under control, and help you hopefully in a powerful way. All right. So if we go back, we'll look at the skills. So go back to page 23. So number one is to make an honest evaluation of your anger. So hopefully you completed that assessment honestly and got a decent picture of where you may stand in this. So people with anxiety and depression tend to overreact to a lot of things. Anger turned inward can lead to anxiety or depression. All right. And just like we want to keep our baseline anxiety down, we want to keep our baseline anger down. So if you're an angry person, on a scale of 1 to 10, you don't want to be walking around at a 5 all the time, because when a little irritation occurs, it can set you over the edge. So you want to, and the good thing is, like, a lot of the skills you're learning with the breathing exercises and the mindfulness, those target anger as well. So if you're wondering, like, I don't even know how to get my anger below a 5, a lot of the skills you're learning, you'll find will be able to help you with that. So you can't control these emotions and break habits. And so here's some practical suggestions in this session on how to do that. All right, so number 2 is to make forgiveness a big part of your life. So the missing word there is forgiveness. All right, so what I want you to do at the bottom there, it says forgiveness, write a definition. So go ahead and start out, just put in some words, some phrases, an actual definition of how you see forgiveness. So I'll just give you a couple seconds to come up with some key terms there and write something down. And as you're writing that down, I'm sure you'll agree, as a subpoint, say people will let you down. That there's no such thing as a perfect person except Jesus, that we talked about last week. But people here on earth, like, there's nobody's perfect. And people end up forgetting things, letting you down, breaking promises, those sort of things. But the big thing is, I'm sure you've heard the phrase forgive and forget, right? And I hate that phrase, because to forgive somebody, we don't have to forget. All right. So if I hired a babysitter to come watch my child and they abuse my child in some way, I can forgive that person, but there's no way I'm going to hire them again to come babysit my child. Like, I'm not going to forget what happened. Same way, if I park beside somebody at work and, as they're backing out, they bump into my car, like, I can forgive that person, but the next time I come to work, I'm not going to park beside them, right? So I mean, you want to be smart about it. You want to learn from it. But you can forgive that person and don't have to forget. And another thing, we can forgive somebody even if they never ask for our forgiveness. So we don't have to wait around for somebody to come and apologize for something that they have done. And we need to hold this grudge and hold this emotional burden until they actually come and ask for forgiveness. Like we can forgive somebody whether they ask for the forgiveness or not. All right. So some key points, in my definition. So first of all, it's a choice. So we have to decide that we're going to forgive a person. So the second one, this is a huge key. It doesn't condone what the person had done, right? So somebody lies to you and you forgive them. It doesn't mean that you're telling them it was okay that you lied to me. Go ahead and keep lying. So it's not condoning the behavior. Number 3, it doesn't forget. So just as we just talked, like you don't have to forget what had happened and not learn from it. It's for a decision that you make to forgive a person. And 5 is really the key. So 5 says that basically you're releasing an emotional burden. So when you don't forgive somebody, you have this emotional burden over the other person, and you're willing to let go of that and release that. And as I work with couples, I do a lot of couples counseling and couples therapy over the year. What years? One of the most memorable and impactful sessions we do is on forgiveness. And I always talk about taking 100% responsibility for whatever role you play. So in marriage, people tend to have a fight and each person feels like the other person's 75% responsible, I'm only 25% responsible, so I'll just wait for them to come ask for forgiveness. And they both have the exact same view of the conflict and those sort of things. What I teach is taking 100% responsibility for whatever percent you're responsible for. So you know what? If they're 99% responsible and they did this huge, horrible thing towards you, and maybe you didn't respond in the kindest or most godly way, and you're only 1% responsible, I still say, like, take 100% responsibility for your 1%, and walk up to that person and say, just take responsibility. Say, I realize when I was upset, I reacted in this way, and I said this, and I want you to know I shouldn't have done that, and I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Now, you can't control, again, we talk over and over in this program, like, you can only control yourself. So that doesn't mean that they're going to turn around and ask for your forgiveness for their 99%. Doesn't mean they're not going to laugh in your face. Doesn't mean that they're not going to call you names, whatever it may be. You can only control what you do. But part of it, the other way, I had a pastor that I loved, this vision of what forgiveness is. He said it's basically taking a person off of your hook and putting it over on God's hook. Where God is a much better person to, like, deal with the mistake and the sin, or whatever it is, and just taking that off yourself. And the other thing, I'm not sure where I heard this from, but unforgiveness. So we just did a definition of forgiveness, but I love the picture of unforgiveness is like taking a sip of poison every day and expecting it to hurt the other person. So when we refuse to forgive somebody, we're really not hurting the other person. It's only hurting ourselves. Now, with that, you don't rush through the stages of forgiveness. If somebody does something major, you don't have to forgive them on the spot. Sometimes it takes weeks, months, for some people even years, until they get to the place where they can say, okay, I'm ready to release this burden on you. And the best way to know, especially with couples, we talk about, every time you have a conflict, when you start to bring up things from the past, hey, remember 2 years ago when you did this? Remember last week when you said this? So when you're pulling those things out of the past, that's the best indicator that those are things you have not released and you have not forgiven a person for. So again, to help your anger, start to make this forgiveness thing a big part of your life. So number 3, use core skills to help with anger and mood swings. Again, when I work with couples or even individuals that have issues with anger, I'll ask the question, when you get angry to the point where you're yelling and screaming and your blood pressure is boiling, how often does that conflict end well? And it's rare that anybody, even gives me anything above 0%. So part of the step is to realize when I get angry, and I'm boiling and I'm really upset, like, there's just no good ending to this. So stop and think, like, why am I doing this? And I remember as a teacher, as kids would come up on the playground and want to tell me something that one of the other kids had done, I would always ask the kid this question. I would say, now wait, like, before you tell me this, are you telling me this because you want to help that person or you want to hurt that person? And you know what, if you want to help that person, maybe they're in danger, maybe they're putting other people in danger, it's a good time to tell me. But if you want to come and tell me just because you want to hurt them and see them get in trouble and go to timeout or lose recess or whatever, I don't want that to be your motivation. And think about that. Like, when you're angry, and you're going to yell and scream, or you're going to do something for revenge, what is the motivation and where's that leading to? I love the technique of using a timeout. So when you're super angry and your anger's off the charts, and it's not going to go well, in a relationship, like, either person should be able to just call time out and say, you know what, our emotions are high right now. This is not going to end well. Let's take a break. The rule to that is within 24 hours, then you have to, like, re-engage and bring up whatever the topic is when emotions aren't so high, and you can have a great, kind, logical discussion about it. Also, evaluate the usefulness of your anger. What exactly are you getting out of it? And a lot of times, ask the question, What's wrong with the person that you're angry with? So in psychology, we have a phrase, hurt people hurt people. So people are hurting, people have gone through trauma, maybe they're dealing with stuff at home, maybe they're dealing with things in their personal lives. A lot of times the ones that are mean and nasty and the bullies in the schools and those sort of things, they're acting out in that way because they themselves are hurting. So a lot of times, if somebody's mean and nasty towards me or says a rude comment, like my first thought is always like, I wonder what's going on with this person. Well, like why, why do they feel like they need to attack me? And that's in some way going to make them feel better, or it's going to get out some anger and emotions that they have bottled up. And I promise you, it's the same, for mean, nasty people surrounding you in your life, that they also have issues going on that you may not even be aware of. Right. Number 4 is to don't bring your anger target home. So I remember working with a guy that was very much, I hate my boss. He's so mean and nasty towards me and always belittling me, micromanaging, going on. And I can't even like focus at dinner and spend any kind of quality time with my family. And so, I mean, he went on for pretty much a whole session, like just all these horrible things about his boss. And at the end, I said to him, I said, why do you, like, why would you invite your boss to dinner? And, he said, you're crazy. Like, I would never invite him into my home and this and that. It's like, when you're at the dinner table and you can't like spend time with your family and you're focused on the boss, you've invited him into your home, like not just at the dinner table, but, in your bed at night. You allow him to like keep you up at night and affect your relationship with your spouse. And, it sounds like you really like this person, that you're inviting them into your home, into your bed at night, and those sort of things. And it was kind of like an eye opener, like, yeah, this is like not healthy, and this is not the way that I want it to be. And so those people that you're angry with, you got to be able to let it go, set it down, and be able to enjoy the loved ones and the positive people around you. And number 5 is to change the culture of your home. And this actually came out of an idea. My son likes the Berenstain Bears and all the books. And there's one of the Berenstain Bear books is all about manners. And, Brother Bear and Sister Bear, the 2 younger kids, have no manners. And, they're just being rude to each other. They're like cutting each other off. They're not like sharing the bathroom and their toys and all these sort of things. So Mama comes up with this great idea that everybody needs to use like good manners. And so brother and sister come up with this plan where they're just going to like overdo the manners. And so it's always like, oh, sister dear, like the bathroom's all yours. And before you, Brother Bear, you're so wonderful and they're so kind. And, they're trying to annoy Mama with their great manners, but the opposite happens. Like Mama is like thrilled with how the bear cubs are acting. And ultimately what happens is the bear cubs realize like, hey, you know what, using manners, like our house is better, we fight less, we're happier. And in the end, it just kind of balances out where they use like a healthy level of manners, which Mama wanted all the time. So I can tell you, like one of the parts of the homework is going to be to pick a 3-day period where you're going to do what the Berenstain Bears did. And you're going to change the culture of your home, change the culture of your work. So you know what, if you say at work, like there's just no respect, I want you for 3 days to pour on respect like you couldn't believe on your coworkers. So if you say at home right now, there's just not a lot of positive words. We just cut each other down. Everybody's so negative. Like pour on like the positive words like crazy. And I'm saying it's 3 days because, the first day people may look like at you like you're nuts and, respond in a negative way. But I'm saying stick with it, keep it up. And, just pour it on over the top. And just like the Berenstain Bears, hopefully that'll balance out. So some other things you're going to do in that anger assessment. So look, just like we did with expectations, look for your 3s and your 4s and target those. So let's just say number 4, someone makes a joke about you. And let's say you put a 4 there, like, I can't stand that. That makes me so mad. Create the better but believable thoughts. Like I'm important enough that somebody chose me to think about me, to be part of the joke. Laughter is healthy. I'm glad people could get a laugh at my expense. And so you're just looking at the better but believable thoughts. Everything I just said was better. If you would use something like that, just make sure it's also believable. So over the next week or two, go down through those. And then again, you're doing a 3-day challenge. And I also got some situations in here that, my mother makes me angry. She treats me like a child, criticizes me constantly. So just how would you diffuse your anger in that moment and use the better but believable thoughts? So there's 4 different ones. Number 3, after telling my kids 20 times not to throw the ball in the house, they broke a pitcher. That seems to be a common one with parenting, and my kids are out of control. Those sort of things. Part of it, like a sample I have in my book. The better but believable thought. It's a great sign that I need to learn maybe a couple new parenting skills. And the better but believable thought is, I'm glad it's now when they're 7 years old, and not when they're 27 and totally out of my control, and I have to go visit them in prison, or whatever. Like, we're going to take care of this now. I'll pick up some things. I will say, like, one of the, as far as parenting goes, like, I teach some parenting classes in the church, and a lot of it comes from, there's a program, it's called Positive Parenting Solutions. So I'm sure if you do a Google search for that, it's a little video workbook program, and gives you some great tips and advice on parenting. But that's kind of off topic. But also, keep up the diet, the exercise, all the skills. And at the bottom, I want you to just try things differently. So things that would have normally made you super angry. So your kid says something, your spouse says something, your boss says or something, does something. Write down what the situation was, and I want you to handle it differently. So try and be more positive. Try pouring on whatever it is that you're trying to change the culture of. And so you'll put, this is how I would have handled it in the past. I would have screamed and yelled, walked out of the room and slammed the door, and put how you handled it this time. Instead of doing that, I just gave them some eye contact. I said, that's very, very disrespectful, and it hurts my feelings. And, please don't do that in the future. And write down what the results are. How did they respond? Did they look at you like, what's up with this guy or this lady that, they're not flying off the handle and not responding in anger as they normally do. So that gives you lots to do, plenty to do. And I'll look forward to our next session, which is on the what if thinking, which I'm sure if you're dealing with anxiety or depression, like, that seems to be a huge issue. Everybody seems to want to start there, but all the skills we've been learning are building you up, being ready for session 8. So we'll see you then.